Okay, my good wife says she wants a couple more spoons to use with her tea. So, got a nice day out here. It's not too cold. I'm going to look for something. My box of goodies. That's a Purple Heart, cedar, and more cedar. Actually, I think that's walnut. Here's a piece of, looks like a piece of walnut. So, we'll go with that. So, first step, kind of trace out a rough idea of the pattern. I'll make the handle a little bit thicker than your normal teaspoon. But again, the handle can be any way you'd like, as long as you like, etc. It's really the business end of the teaspoon. That's the most critical part. Actually, I flipped it over and figured I could use up the whole piece of wood and make three. That way, I don't have to make more. What happened? What? Now, as you can tell, that's a pretty rough cutout job. The problem is I can't get in front of my lighting situation I have here and squeeze my body in there and get in a position where it's easy to do. It's like filming these videos and making something is 10 times harder than just making the thing itself. So I guess that's okay for a rough sanding on the belt sander. Have the profile that I want. There's still scratches and edges and still a lot of shaping that has to happen. There's no perfect shape to it because that's what makes them custom made. No two will be the same because they're made by hand. If they were made by machines, well, it'd be mass production. Well, as I said on other videos, you could make things completely by hand, and I have, but I like to use the tools and machines that I'm fortunate to have. Not everybody has them, and I didn't already always have them. But there's just some comfort about using hand tools. So I'm going to finish this off just using rasps. There's a rat tail file, half round file, and a flat file here, and just shape it to where you get it where there's no sharp edges. You get it to the profile that you want. And always the thing to remember about files or rasps of any kind is the teeth point away from the handle, so it only cuts when you push it. So going back like this, it's only cutting 50% of the time. So it's a kind of a common error that a lot of people make. But I'm going to finish this off using the file. Then, of course, there'll be some sanding. Now I'm going to have to use the Dremel to cut out the depression here for the spoon part. Now, probably this is the most challenging part. And again, I would have done this first because it's a little hard, more difficult to hold, etc. But, we'll see how it goes. This was green wood. As I mentioned before, I could use a hook knife to slowly cut that out. But on dried wood, such as this walnut, it's just a lot more difficult, a lot easier to do using the Dremel tool. Doesn't mean it's not challenging because this tool cuts really quick and it can jump around and it's easy to mess up. Well, that's it for the Dremel. I think I got that deep enough compared to a regular metal teaspoon. It's not used for measurement. It's used just for adding honey, stirring it up when it's in the mug. So, and of course, you always need sanding. No matter what you make, it always requires some hand sanding. And you know, if you don't like sanding, don't get into woodworking because and really metalworking, even body work on a car, etc., revolves or requires sanding. And of course, you use different grits progressively to get it as smooth as you want. But you know, that's kind of part of the process. So there you go. I've got it sanded with, I think it was 150 or 180 maybe. I'm going to wet it and I'm going to raise the grain. That's what wetting does. It raises the grain and then resand it again with 220. And walnut has a really beautiful color and sometimes even like a purple, reddish hues in there, and gives it a nice patina and grain finish. And then we'll finish it off with some mineral oil, and then that's pretty much it. So one thing I want to mention is, you know, people say, well, it's great to make these things. If I had all the machines and equipment and tools that you had, I'd be able to do that too. Well, you know, that's really silly because what I have is nothing great. Matter of fact, that bandsaw over there you see in the corner, you could probably buy that on Marketplace for $100 or less. That sander that I was using there is just an inverted belt sander. Actually, used to be my father-in-law's. It's probably 80 years old. Okay, old Craftsman. The stuff I have here, the miter saw and these, it's hard to see with the sun there, drill press and everything, old Craftsman, you know, some DeWalt things, and, you know, the grinders and old Craftsman there. And of course I do, oh, camera's moving around. Of course I do, you know, forging and things like that. But I mean, my hand tools and everything were, you know, the anvil here was actually given to me. A lot of stuff I have was given to me and, you know, bought in yard sales, etc. So, you know, you don't need a lot. I always stress that, you know, you can do these things yourself by simple hand tools, simple machines, and things you could pick up on Marketplace or yard sale, etc. There is nothing elaborate in your shop, but yet there have been tons of things that have been made over the years, from, you know, forging and blacksmithing to machining and metalworking and tinsmithing and making of knives and different metal projects and wood projects like you see, etc. You know, I remember years ago I used to watch a show called The New Yankee Workshop. Some of you might remember that, with Norm Abrams, great craftsman. Used to love watching that. And you know, you'd watch his show and you'd say, well, sure, Norm, you know, I could make these things too if I had $50,000 worth of equipment, which he had. He had the best, top of the line. And it was kind of funny when he would say, well, you know, you can buy the plans online, you can make these yourself. Well, nobody had that type of equipment. But the kind of things that I make, you'd be surprised at what you can do with just some simple machines and tools. And don't let that discourage you. And I've collected these things, oh, gosh, over the last 50 plus years that I've been doing this type of thing. A lot of the things have been from my dad and grandfathers and uncles, etc. So don't let that stop you from doing these things yourself. My wife being Italian, we are going to use olive oil, and we'll just saturate it, rub it off a little bit, and it'll be ready to use. So there we've got that saturated, as you can see, and we'll let that sit overnight, and tomorrow morning we'll be able to use it.